Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals, entrepreneurs, and business owners publish to inform their consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable experts across the country and in your town. Specifically for this series, we're talking with attorneys that have a specialty in elder law. And joining me on this segment is Jordan Parr with the Cox Law Group, based in Torrance, California. Jordan, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Jordan, I know elder law is a broad subject. Can you please tell us a little bit about your areas of specialty on that spectrum and the types of clients that you typically serve?
Yeah, so elder law encompasses several different areas of practice. In the broadest sense, we do estate planning, so things like living wills and trusts, advanced healthcare directives, powers of attorney, all the legal documents that you really want to put in place so that as the aging process comes along and maybe certain capacity is no longer there, that the person's wishes are memorialized. So it's really clear for the family what that person wants to happen with their assets and also for their care, what kind of treatment they want. And then we also do what's called conservatorship practice. Now, conservatorships have become kind of famous because of Britney Spears, but it's an important area of law where basically you're allowing somebody to take legal control over managing your personal affairs and your finances. And conservatorships are kind of the step up from a power of attorney where you allow a family member typically, but there's also professionals who can do it to manage somebody's treatment and their finances. And so we help put conservatorships in place. And typically they're very smooth, but sometimes if there's disputes between family members about who should be the conservator or whether mom or dad really needs a conservatorship, we help resolve those conflicts as well. Our clients are usually family members, either of an elderly person or the elderly person themselves. Occasionally, we do represent professional fiduciaries who get brought into a situation that they've been asked to fill a role, because if there is a dispute with the family, sometimes a judge will say, okay, we're just going to put a professional here. And since we can't get the siblings to agree, we'll just put a third party in place. So in very broad strokes, that's what we do. We also do special needs planning. So people with disabilities who want to keep public benefits. We help people apply for public benefits. There's a lot of different little nuances to our practice, but in very big picture, that's what we do.
So you mentioned conservatorship, and also in a broad stroke, can you define some of the areas that are important to get these permissions, like conservatorship? I heard about healthcare being involved and that. Can you shed some light on a few of those areas that are really important?
Yeah, and that goes into the estate planning context. So ideally, what you want is for grandma or grandpa or mom or dad to write down while they're still totally lucid, who would I want to take care of me as I get older? And you would write that down in what's called an advanced healthcare directive. And within that, there's a nomination of a conservator. So, grandma or grandpa says, I want my son to act as conservator, and because I think that he would be the best person to take care of me. And that's not to say, sister, that I don't think you're right. I just think in this particular role, son would be better. Maybe he lives closer. Maybe he's a nurse and has experience. Who knows? But the idea is that you want to have a plan in place so that when that time comes to actually petition for the conservatorship, it's crystal clear about what the person wants. Because by the time we get to actually needing a conservatorship, typically dementia has set in and that person's opinions, and they're not as clear-headed as they were, in the past. And so that's why it's really good to have that memorialized in some kind of estate plan.
I was really eager to get this more, to bring more awareness to this topic, because the more I, casually survey folks, the more I realize that there's not a lot of known information out there, or a lot of misconceptions. Like, for example, one of our listeners wrote in a question that they wanted addressed. The question was, is a will enough? How would you address that?
Yeah, great question. And the short answer is no. And here's why. You want to avoid what's called a probate, which is a probate proceeding is when somebody dies, the court opens up a case where the court is going to oversee the distribution of that person's estate. And yes, a will is essential. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. And because a will basically says, this is where I want my assets to go, so that'll make the probate clearer. So it's better than nothing. But really, you want to avoid a probate entirely because probates are time consuming and they're expensive. You're looking, in the ballpark of around 5% of your assets just immediately being sucked up in attorney's fees and administration costs. And nobody wants that. That money should stay in your family. And so the way that you avoid a probate is you set up a trust. And what you do with the trust is you put all your big ticket, expensive assets into that trust. So things like real estate, expensive investment accounts, all those kind of very high value assets, you want to put that in the name of the trust. And in the trust, you set out a distribution scheme that says, when I die, I want 50% to go to son, 50% to go to daughter. So it functions very similar to a will. But in terms of the legal title, those assets are held by this entity called the trust. So that when the person dies, there's nothing for the court to administer because technically, in the legal sense, that person doesn't have assets. All their assets are belonging to the trust. And the great thing is you can set it up in a way where you are the trustee of your own trust. So you stay in control of those assets. But from a legal perspective, it prevents that probate proceeding from opening up, and it allows that money to stay in the family, which is what we all want.
Terrific insight on that. Jordan, when I think of this topic of elder law, I know aging is such a sensitive subject, and this is reminding me a lot of financial planning, where more people, when they start to address it, they're already behind the eight ball. Do you find this to be true? Are there a lot of misconceptions out there when people come to you? Are they almost in emergency situations, or what have you found to be the biggest challenges that you hear most commonly?
Yes, unfortunately, like you said, the common idea that most people have is, I just need a will, and that's all I need. And again, they're shocked when they surprise, wait a minute, we have to go to court because this person died. He had a will, but it's, again, the court needs to oversee to make sure that that will gets distributed properly. And a lot of times what happens is children of deceased parents come in and they go through the whole mess of probate, which again is a very complicated, you have to get an appraisal of all your assets, you have to itemize everything. It's just a pain. And a lot of family members, they go through this and they say, how do I avoid this for my family? I never want to put my kids through this. And that's where we set up those estate plans. And the way our office does it is we do a comprehensive suite. So if you hire us, we do a fixed fee. And for that, you'll get a complete power of attorney, advanced healthcare directives, a will called a pour over will, meaning that will pours over into your trust and the trust itself. And so the idea is that we try to name the specific big ticket items that go into the trust when we create it, but we create a pour over will that in case something, doesn't get moved over or whatever, that will automatically pour those assets over into the trust when you die, which still avoids the probate. So yeah, it's something that if you own property, you need a trust. You really, trust me, you do not want to go into a probate. And really the magic number is it's around $160,000. So if your assets are greater than that amount, you really need a trust because again, this probate situation, it is very time consuming and expensive, and it's completely avoidable. And estate planning, sometimes people think, oh, I'm not a millionaire. That sounds like something that only really rich people, need. It's not true. It's something that's very accessible. Our rates are very reasonable. We tend to cater to a lot of middle class and, below clients who have some assets and things. And especially, and that's the special needs component as well. If you have a child with autism or cerebral palsy, and those public benefits that they're receiving are so essential, well, an inheritance to that child can actually put those benefits at risk. And you have to plan for creating what's called a special needs trust to make sure that they remain eligible for things like Medicaid and Social Security, supplemental income. There's all kinds of little nuances to this, but all this to say is estate planning should be part of everybody's plans for as they age. And it's never too early to get it in place, because all these things are easily amendable. So if you change your mind as circumstances change, it's so much easier to write an amendment to a will or a trust than it is to create it out of scratch, especially if somebody's already suffering with Alzheimer's or dementia. It can get really complicated. So, it's best to get ahead of the game.
So much for folks to learn and understand. Jordan, you're a wealth of knowledge on this topic. What inspired you to specialize in elder law? How did you get started?
Yeah, it was actually a friend of mine from church introduced me to our senior partner here, Cynthia Cox. And I was looking for a job. And as I learned more about elder law, it wasn't something that I was really exposed to in law school. But as I found out that it's a way that you can use your legal practice to really help people, and you're helping navigate some really intimate, significant decisions with people. And oftentimes people are nervous. It's anxiety inducing, and we're talking about mortality. I mean, these are heavy things. And so for me, I really love the opportunity to come alongside families and provide some clarity, some comfort, to say, hey, we can get through this and we can make the outcome be exactly what is best for your family. And also, when there's disputes between siblings or cousins or things, it's really rewarding when we're able to resolve those amicably. And so kind of untangling those complicated situations is something that gives me a lot of satisfaction. And again, helping people plan for their legacy. It's really rewarding work from I would say a spiritual perspective, but I really enjoy helping people in this way.
Jordan, for folks listening in the audience today that are in the Torrance, California area, or the areas that you serve and practice, if they need your help, how can they connect with you and learn more? And how can you help them?
Yeah, so Cox Law Group, we serve all of LA County and even some Orange County and Kern County, but primarily LA County. And you can come visit us on our website, which is Cox Law Group Inc. COX Law Group Inc.com. That gives an overview of our firm. And if you want to speak with me directly, you can send me an email at jordan@coxlawgroupinc.com, or give us a call at 310-798-6150.
Jordan, this has been terrific, and I appreciate you sharing your sage advice with my audience today. I wish you continued success for you, for Cox Law Group, and for all of your clients.
Thanks so much, Mark. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
Jordan Parr, attorney with the Cox Law Group, and this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals, entrepreneurs, and business owners publish to inform their consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.